Now back to Smoke on the Water for more Straight Up with Sturge.
All righty, welcome back in. 7:45 on this Friday night edition of Straight Up with Sturge. Mark Sturgis, Price Atkinson coming to you live from a rockin' Smoke on the Water here in downtown Greenville tonight. We're going to go to the guest lines, bring on Andrew Catalon, CBS Sports, CBS Sports Network, NBC Sports. Anything else that we're leaving out right now, Andrew?
I appreciate the introduction. It's good to be with you guys.
Well, thank you very much for taking time, and we know that you're kind of like in shutdown mode now as you prepare to get on the airplane, I believe, on Sunday to head over to Russia. You know, we'll talk a little bit of curling, but let me ask you, any nerves about getting on this plane? Has NBC Sports quelled any fears? Do you have any comfort when President Obama comes out yesterday and says that he feels everything's going to be okay because he knows that Vladimir Putin and the Russians know what's at stake here in these next few weeks with the Olympics?
Well, it sure didn't hurt to hear the president say that, I'll tell you that much. I actually leave next Wednesday, so I have a few days before I go off. And, you know, obviously there's a little bit of an unsettling feeling at times when you see and hear some of the reports, but you know, the same could be true for any Olympics. I mean, it's a target. It always has been. We've seen, unfortunately, things happen in the past, and you just have to hope that, you know, this time around will be different and that everything will be taken care of and that, you know, you trust everything will be okay.
Andrew, Price Atkinson sitting in with Mark tonight. So I wanted to ask you, I mean, you got your start. I mean, you work for CBS Sports now, but, you know, you move over and work for NBC during the games, and you got your start, I believe, your first Olympics in Beijing. You know, what is it like? You know, talk about what it's like to be a part of the Olympic Games. You know, what is it like to be immersed in that for 2.5, 3 weeks? You know, just is the opportunity. I mean, what is that like for you as a broadcaster?
Yeah, Price, I'll tell you what, it's an incredibly rewarding 2-3 weeks that you're away. But when you're there, it's definitely the hardest work I've ever had to do. I mean, the days are very long, and, you know, you're really just, that's your world for 2.5, 3 weeks. You don't talk to your family, your friends that much. You're not, you know, you're just working. And that's what you're there for. That's your job. And then when it's all said and done, when you look back on that 2 or 3 weeks, there's a great sense of accomplishment and pride for all the work that you put in to be a part of such a great organization and association and to have that experience. But I'll tell you what, the lead up with all the prep work is not easy, and when you're there, it's, you know, this is my 4th Olympics. Now, in Beijing, I did it out of a studio in New York, but I went to Vancouver and I went to London. I have yet to see another event other than the one I'm announcing. I have not been able to go to a hockey game when I was in Vancouver or a basketball game when I was in London just because, you know, the work that you put into it is so, you know, you have so much time that you're just at the venue. So you're working hard, but it certainly feels good when it's all done.
Well, you know, in this being your 3rd Olympics that you're going to be actually at, but of the 2, well, London and Vancouver, you know, is there a moment that kind of stands out to you of those Olympics that you've been a part of, you know, being there, that it just kind of a memorable moment as a broadcaster that you witness? Is there any moment of flags, medal ceremony or something that happened on the ice or, you know, on the court that just, you know, it just kind of leaves you just with that Olympic spirit?
Yeah, I'd say one of the greatest thrills I've ever had came at the 2012 Olympics in London. And, you know, the tennis tournament was held at Wimbledon, so it was just incredible to be on the grounds of Wimbledon for a week. And, you know, our broadcast position was in that center court bunker, so we were about 5 feet off the court level. And I had the privilege of calling the Roger Federer, Juan Martín del Potro semifinal match, which went on to be the longest match in Olympic history. It was 4.5 hours. It was 19-17 in the 3rd set. And that was just one of the greatest thrills I've ever had in the broadcast booth.
We're talking with Andrew Catalon, CBS Sports, CBS Sports Network, NBC Sports, and in general, one of the best play-by-play guys out there. But, Andrew, you're going to be covering curling at the Winter Olympics. I believe you covered curling in Vancouver. How much do you follow this sport in between Olympics, and how do you prepare yourself for painting a picture of what has become a little bit of a cult level sport, but in all honesty, most sports fans really don't know anything more than there's a heavy weight and some brooms when it comes to curling.
I missed the first part of your question. I think it cut out, but I kind of caught the end of it, and I think I know where you're going. And
just asking, how do you prepare for curling?
Go ahead.
I was just saying, how do you prepare for curling in a situation where you probably don't cover it too much in between the 4 years of Olympics?
Yeah, no question about it. And you know, I did the Vancouver games, and there was a ton of prep work involved for that, because not only did I have to learn the sport, but I had to learn the players. So this time around, the prep work's a little different in that I already know the sport, and I already know the American curlers because I've had an opportunity to cover them and meet them over the past few years. So my prep work has changed a little bit, but there's no question it's a difficult thing to prepare for. It's not like you're going to ESPN.com and pulling up stats as you would for the NFL or the NBA. It's a totally different animal. The information is not as readily available. So there's a lot of research that goes into it, and you know, part of the job is telling the stories, but part of the job is explaining the sport, because as you say, not everyone really knows what this sport's all about. You only see it every 4 years. You forget the rules. You forget what the goals are. So, you know, it's kind of an educational experience. You certainly enjoy the storytelling part of it. In that regard, it's similar to a baseball broadcast, and you also want to have fun with it because it is a fun sport.
You know, Andrew, when you move from, you do so much college football and college basketball, and you go from the arenas and the stadiums, you know, and you're really kind of building to a crescendo a lot of times with, you know, the ending of a field goal or a big three-pointer. You know, how different is that when it's a long, drawn-out match? It usually takes a few hours to play a curling match. I mean, you know, kind of touching on what Mark asked, I mean, how different is that to go from the, you know, the excitement of what you see on the collegiate level to a much more strategic kind of game that is drawn out like curling?
Yeah, it's a much different broadcast, no question about it. Between college football and college basketball, you know, you're yelling half the time on exciting plays. You don't really have that, if at all, during a curling game. So the best way I can relate it to is a baseball broadcast. I mean, it's longer. You have time to tell stories. There's an occasional home run or big shot in curling that you get excited about, but there's a lot of strategy that goes into it. So I really equate a lot of announcing curling like you would a baseball game.
So in other words, Andrew, do you have a certain amount of prep work in your, like Skip Carey and Ernie Johnson and those guys back in the day with the Atlanta Braves knew that it was going to be about 12-0 in the seventh inning, so they better have some good stories prepared to fill out the rest of the broadcast?
No question about it. You got to come armed with a lot of stories to tell, because, you know, not only, you know, in regards to a baseball broadcast, let's say, as you said, you're the Braves announcer. When you see the Braves 162 games a year, I'm going to see the Americans every day. So I want to try to not repeat stories. I want to try to give different angles and different background information about the players. So specifically for the Americans, there's a lot of research you need to have done.
Andrew, let me ask you real quick. You know, we're talking about calling the matches and stuff, but let's get to the two teams at hand. Most of our listeners are not going to be familiar, you know, with our two American teams, the men's and women's team that will take to the ice. Team Brown, Erica Brown, the women's team, kind of considered an all-star team. On the other side, you have John Schuster getting to go back to the games again. Both teams finished last in the last Olympics. You know, what is your read on these two teams? I mean, you saw them in the men's in the qualification, and you saw the women in the Olympic trials. You know, what is your read on Team Erica Brown's team and then John Schuster's team, you know, going into the Olympics with maybe a shot to sneak on the podium?
Yeah, well, I think the better chance is for the American women to try to come home with a medal. I mean, right now they're probably, you know, there's 10 teams in the tournament. I'd say the American women are probably fourth or fifth best. So, you know, you put them in the middle of the pack, maybe they get hot, get a couple breaks. They're certainly a team that has a pretty good chance to come home with some type of medal. The American men are a complete X factor. If you had the rankings 1 to 10, they're probably 9 or 10. However, if they get hot, they can beat any team in the country. So while they're the underdogs, I think they can thrive in that role. And while it's going to take some incredible, curling for them to move up the ranks, it's not out of the realm of possibility that this team could get really hot and surprise a lot of people. So I think there are two different teams. You got the American women, steady, could get up to the top, and the kind of the craziness of the American men who kind of ride that roller coaster. But if they get riding high, they have a chance to medal as well.
And do you think John Schuster's team, do you think the way they had to go to Germany in the qualification is a little bit different, where the women, whoever won the Olympic trials, automatically got in due to finishing the World Championship point-wise? It's kind of complicated, but the men had to go to Germany and participate in the qualification tournament, which they were able to slip in. Do you think that momentum will help carry them into the games here coming up starting next week?